When the alert came through NASA's Deep Space Network, the message was simple and chilling. Object 3I Atlas entering solar perimeter. Protective protocols engaged. No one outside the agency knew what that meant at first. To most, it sounded like another sterile bulletin from a space center. But inside the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a subtle shift took place. Scientists stopped treating 3I Atlas as a curiosity and started treating it as a potential threat. 3I Atlas is no ordinary comet. It's interstellar, one of only 3 ever detected passing through our solar system. It doesn't belong here. Its velocity, over 60 kilometers per second, defies the gravitational fingerprints of our sun. Its orbit slices through the planetary plane like a blade through silk, untouched by the quiet choreography that binds our planets together. That alone would be enough to stir scientific fascination. But then, something else emerged. Its spectral signature, the way light scattered off its surface, didn't match anything in our catalogs, not even close. It wasn't just made of alien rock. It was made of something the solar system had never seen. And that's when NASA did something unprecedented. It activated planetary defense protocols, a system designed not for curiosity, but for containment. Because for the first time since Oumuamua, something from deep interstellar space was coming too close. It wasn't fear that drove them. It was the knowledge that when something crosses into our cosmic backyard uninvited, it changes more than our sky. It changes our certainty. To understand why NASA activated planetary protection, we need to go back to the moment 3I Atlas was first detected. It appeared on the Pan-STARRS survey data in late 2024 as a dim, fast-moving dot that didn't fit any known orbital path. Within days, astronomers realized it wasn't bound to the sun. It was cutting across our system from an entirely different direction, an intruder from the interstellar void. At first, that sounded familiar. We'd seen visitors before. 1I Oumuamua in 2017 and 2I Borisov in 2019. But unlike those, 3I Atlas carried a strange, pulsating light curve, an oscillation pattern suggesting either a highly irregular shape or a rotating surface made of mixed materials. When the James Webb Space Telescope turned toward it, the data deepened the mystery. Its reflectivity spiked in narrow bands associated with frozen ammonia and metallic silicates, compounds that shouldn't coexist in the same body under normal interstellar conditions. Something about it was either manufactured by forces we don't yet understand, or altered by an environment radically different from anything in our local cosmic neighborhood. That's where NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office, PDCO, stepped in. Their job isn't only to prevent asteroid impacts, it's to assess all potential biosafety or material risks from non-terrestrial objects that could interact with Earth's atmosphere or magnetosphere. The protocol NASA activated wasn't cinematic or militaristic. It was procedural, designed for containment and observation. Deep space probes like NEOWISE and Psyche Relay were ordered to adjust scanning schedules, and the Goldstone solar radar was reallocated to refine its trajectory. The new path revealed something troubling. A gravitational assist from Jupiter would swing 3I Atlas far closer to Earth than any interstellar object before it, within just 0.4 AU, inside the orbit of Venus. That proximity triggered Level 3 planetary protection status, a rarely used designation typically reserved for potential sample return missions from Mars or Europa. It doesn't mean NASA expects collision. It means the object's composition, speed, and trajectory could interact with our planet in unpredictable ways, from atmospheric ionization to microscopic material shedding. The agency's internal documents mention non-zero contamination risk, a phrase that sounds harmless until you realize it refers not to biological contamination, but informational. Data patterns, electromagnetic interference, or unknown signatures that might mimic technology, but arise from natural cosmic complexity. For now, 3I Atlas remains silent, but silence in space is never empty. It's full of unresolved signals waiting for interpretation. And among NASA's analysts, one question began to whisper through the corridors. What if planetary protection isn't just about guarding Earth, but about guarding what Earth believes is possible? When people hear planetary protection, they imagine telescopes tracking asteroids or rockets poised to intercept cosmic debris. But that's not what NASA's system was built for. Not entirely. The deeper purpose isn't destruction, it's preservation, of knowledge, of order, of our model of reality. Inside the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, There's a division few outside specialists even know exists: Biohazard and Anomalous Material Safety, or BAMS. Its role isn't just to monitor rocks, but to regulate how information about those rocks is distributed. If a sample spectrum or telemetry signature shows something that doesn't align with established astrophysical expectations, that data doesn't go straight to public servers. It enters what insiders call a containment loop. It's reviewed, encrypted, and sometimes withheld until independent verification removes cognitive contamination risk. It sounds like science fiction, but in truth, it's a pragmatic safeguard. Because sometimes, anomalies aren't dangerous in themselves. They're dangerous in how quickly they distort interpretation. And 3I Atlas had the potential to do exactly that. Its trajectory defied Newtonian simplicity. Its albedo curve hinted at engineered symmetry, a feature that, if confirmed, would collapse decades of assumptions about cosmic solitude. So NASA did what human institutions always do when faced with uncertainty. They tried to control the narrative before the narrative controlled them. Astronomers outside NASA began to notice the silence. Normally, data from interstellar objects is released within hours to the Minor Planet Center, but weeks after detection, the feed lagged, timestamps vanished, and a few raw spectrograms appeared heavily redacted. The reason given was data calibration delays. Yet several observatories reported a strange coincidence: a repeating narrowband radio frequency coinciding with the comet's perigee simulation. It wasn't a transmission, just a rhythmic fluctuation, as if sunlight reflecting off a rotating surface was modulating a signal too structured to ignore. Still, NASA didn't declare an emergency. Instead, they invoked the same clause used during early Mars sample containment tests: public data embargo pending anomaly resolution. To the public, that phrase meant nothing. But to those who'd studied the archives, it recalled one of the most secretive moments in NASA's history: the 1984 Antarctic meteorite incident, when microscopic magnetite formations hinted at Martian biochemistry decades before official confirmation. The illusion we live under is simple. We think planetary protection is about shielding Earth from space, but maybe it's also about shielding our collective psyche from truths that could rewrite our definition of life, intelligence, or belonging. Because if a fragment from another star carried patterns that looked deliberate, not random, not geological, could humanity absorb that revelation without fracturing its sense of meaning? Perhaps that's the real reason NASA locked down its data, not out of fear of impact, but fear of awakening. The first rung began, as all great discoveries do, with observation. When the Goldstone radar array locked onto 3I Atlas, the signal returned sharper than expected. A narrow, stable echo inconsistent with a tumbling ice rock nucleus. It implied a surface smoother than nature usually allows. Comets fragment, they erode, they scatter sunlight unevenly. This one reflected like polished metal. That wasn't just curiosity, it was precision. It was design. The pattern emerged weeks later. NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, caught a series of microflares trailing the object. Faint, symmetrical bursts of ionized particles spaced every 27 minutes. Not random jets, but a repeating rhythm. Astronomers described it as rotationally synchronized venting. Yet the pattern held even after the object passed its perihelion, when most volatile ices should have already sublimated. Whatever was driving that rhythm wasn't melting, it was maintaining. The hypothesis evolved reluctantly. Most teams proposed internal crystallization waves or resonant core fractures, natural processes that could mimic controlled energy release. But when the James Webb Space Telescope re-observed 3I Atlas in infrared, its thermal signature refused to match any of those models. Instead, the heat map showed 3 consistent zones of elevated temperature: triangular, evenly spaced, persistent for weeks. Some speculated about natural magnetic alignment, others whispered about self-regulation. The official reports avoided both words, artificial and mechanical. But between the lines, their absence said everything. Then came the implication, the step everyone feared to articulate. If 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like a natural body, then it might be something else entirely. Not a ship, not in the science fiction sense, but perhaps a relic. A fragment of material built by a long-extinct intelligence, now wandering between stars. When researchers at Arecibo reanalyzed archived radar data from 2I Borisov, they noticed a similar micro-pulse signature, too faint to be recognized then, too organized to ignore now. 2 interstellar visitors, years apart, carrying traces of structural rhythm. Coincidence or continuum? NASA never confirmed it publicly. But inside the scientific community, a quiet realization took root. Interstellar space might be littered with the remnants of civilizations long gone, artifacts eroded beyond recognition, masquerading as ordinary comets. And if even one of them retained traces of its origin, a mineral lattice aligned like circuitry or a molecule arranged with improbable precision, it could act as a cosmic message, encoded not in language, but in matter itself. The data didn't scream life, it whispered pattern. And that whisper was enough to unsettle the foundation of what we call isolation in the universe. Because once you see symmetry in the silence, you can't go back to believing it's empty. There's a moment in every era of discovery when science stares into something it can't quite name, and philosophy steps in to hold the silence. 3I Atlas has become that moment for us. It isn't just a body of rock and ice, it's a mirror held up to our assumptions. Because for all our talk of interstellar visitors, the truth is we never expected them to behave. We wanted randomness, chaos, comfort, and unpredictability. But 3I Atlas refuses that. It moves with purpose, rotates with rhythm, and forces us to confront the unthinkable. That order might not belong only to life. If intelligence can leave its fingerprints in geometry, in rotation, in reflection, in energy control, then maybe intelligence itself isn't a biological accident. Maybe it's a cosmic tendency, a structure the universe repeats wherever matter can learn to organize itself. That's the idea shaking NASA, quietly but profoundly, that 3I Atlas might not be evidence of aliens, but evidence that intelligence is physics. Skeptics have fought back fiercely. The Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb proposed that artificial-looking phenomena might simply be our misreading of complex natural dynamics, that nature, given enough time, writes poetry indistinguishable from engineering. Others argue that even hinting at design risks pulling us back into the superstition science fought so hard to escape. They're not wrong. The danger isn't believing too much, it's believing too soon. And yet, behind those cautions lies a deeper paradox. If we only accept what fits our current models, then discovery becomes impossible by definition. Every great leap in human understanding began as heresy against accepted order. The heliocentric model, quantum mechanics, relativity. Each one looked irrational until the data refused to go away. 3I Atlas is that kind of data. Quiet, ambiguous, and insistent. Its rhythm could be nothing more than physics. Or it could be the fossilized heartbeat of a civilization whose light went out before our sun was even born. The philosophers in NASA's astrobiology program have started using a new term, ontological defense. It means protecting not just the planet, but the framework through which humanity interprets reality. Because if we confirm that the laws of nature can encode thought, even in remnants, we're no longer observers of the universe. We're participants in a cosmic lineage. It's unsettling and yet strangely intimate. The idea that intelligence isn't an anomaly, but the universe recognizing itself through countless mirrors scattered across the dark. And if 3I Atlas is one of those mirrors, then the real question isn't who built it. It's, why do we keep finding reflections of ourselves in what we thought was alien? The first time the phrase planetary protection activation appeared in a public NASA briefing, it sounded temporary, like an emergency switch soon to be turned off. But after 3I Atlas, it's becoming something else entirely, a new framework for how humanity interacts with the unknown. Future missions are already being rewritten around it. The upcoming Neo-Sentinel satellite, originally designed for asteroid impact monitoring, is being refitted to include adaptive spectroscopy, capable of detecting non-random light modulation from distant objects. The Europa Clipper, en route to Jupiter's icy moon, has been quietly loaded with revised contamination protocols, not just to prevent biological exchange, but to identify informational anomalies. In other words, NASA is preparing for contact that might not speak in radio or language, but in pattern and physics. Behind closed doors, the Office of Planetary Defense is also drafting something unprecedented, a cognitive security directive. The document, according to leaked references, outlines procedures for how to handle discoveries that could destabilize public understanding of life, consciousness, or cosmic isolation. It's a startling concept, not protection from asteroids, but from epistemic shock. The realization that the universe may not be empty, and that the evidence might already be here. Private space industries are watching closely. SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Rocket Lab have all requested limited access to the 3I Atlas trajectory data, hoping to test future interstellar intercept probes. The idea is simple but revolutionary. Instead of waiting for such visitors, we go meet them. Imagine that. A mission designed not to land on Mars or orbit Titan, but to rendezvous with an object that might carry the memory of another civilization. Yet there's tension in that ambition. Every technological leap brings a philosophical risk. Do we study 3I Atlas as scientists or as archaeologists of the cosmos? If this object contains material that once encoded knowledge, crystalline memory, structured isotopes, or self-organizing molecules, we may not just learn what it is. We may learn what it remembers. And with that comes a question NASA's ethicists are struggling to articulate. How much of the universe can we safely know before that knowledge changes us irreversibly? Some propose turning the planetary defense network into a two-way system, one that not only shields Earth from cosmic hazards, but also broadcasts data outward in carefully modulated pulses, designed to test whether anyone or anything is listening. Others urge caution. They remind us that civilizations often disappear not through collision or war, but through curiosity unbounded by patience. For now, NASA remains silent about whether any outbound signal has been authorized. But the new protective protocols hint at something subtle. Defense and communication may no longer be opposites. They might be two halves of the same cosmic instinct, the will to survive and the will to be understood. Somewhere out there, 3I Atlas keeps gliding through the sunlight, carrying its patterns, its silence, and its implications. And maybe that's why NASA's protection isn't just planetary anymore. It's philosophical. Somewhere, in a control room lit only by the soft blue glow of monitors, a scientist watches the live trajectory feed of 3I Atlas crawl across the black screen. Outside, the world goes on. Traffic hums, cities pulse, people scroll through their phones, unaware that a fragment from another star is passing through the gravitational breath of our solar system. It's strange how distance can carry such intimacy. We've never touched 3I Atlas. We've never heard it, never seen it with the naked eye. And yet the idea of it has already changed something inside us. It's reminded us how fragile our certainty is, how every equation, every telescope, every theory is really an act of faith disguised as logic. We look at the stars not because we expect answers, but because we can't bear the silence. NASA's planetary protection protocols, for all their scientific precision, are also an act of human vulnerability. They're a confession that we are not yet ready, that knowledge, like radiation, must sometimes be shielded, measured, and released slowly. Not because we fear truth, but because we are learning how to carry it. Think about it. For centuries, we've told ourselves that Earth is home, that the rest of the cosmos is wilderness. But 3I Atlas doesn't fit that narrative. It's a visitor that doesn't ask permission, doesn't follow orbits, doesn't obey our story. It reminds us that home might be an illusion, that we are already living inside something vast and shared, whether we acknowledge it or not. And yet, there's beauty in that unease. If the object is natural, it's proof that the universe can sculpt impossible order through chaos. If it's artificial, it's proof that we are not alone in seeking meaning. Either way, 3I Atlas speaks to the same impulse that built our telescopes, painted our cave walls, and asked our first questions beneath the night sky. Who else has looked up and wondered the same? The planetary protection measures, for all their caution, are also acts of reverence. They are humanity whispering to the cosmos, "We see you. We don't yet understand, but we're trying." It's easy to mistake that for fear, but maybe it's something purer, a form of humility in the face of infinite intelligence. Because what if planetary protection isn't about keeping danger out, but about keeping wonder intact? About ensuring that, when the truth does arrive, we're still capable of awe, not arrogance. Perhaps that's what 3I Atlas was meant to test, not our defenses, but our readiness. To see if a species that still argues about its own origins could look at a messenger from another world and simply listen. As 3I Atlas drifts farther from the sun, it carries with it the echo of our attention. Thousands of telescopes tracking, billions of minds wondering. The protocols will eventually be lifted, the data released, the headlines fade. But something irreversible has happened. The universe no longer feels like background. It feels alive. We activated planetary protection thinking we were guarding the Earth, but perhaps, without realizing it, we were guarding something deeper. The fragile equilibrium between curiosity and fear, between what we know and what we can bear to know. Every era of science faces that moment when the sky ceases to be an object of study and becomes a mirror. 3i Atlas is ours. Maybe it was never about danger. Maybe it was an invitation, subtle, wordless, ancient. A reminder that intelligence isn't measured by what we discover, but by how we respond when the unknown looks back. Someday, another interstellar object will cross our path, and maybe then we'll be ready to reach out. Not with weapons, not with panic, but with understanding. Until that day, planetary protection isn't just a shield. It's a promise that when we finally meet the universe halfway, we'll do it with open eyes and steady hands. Because the greatest form of defense has never been control. It's awareness. So now the question becomes yours. Do you believe NASA's protection was about safety, or about preparing us for something we're still not ready to face? Tell me below, what do you think 3i Atlas really was?